Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the COVID-19 Preparedness Webinar Series by the Max Institute of Healthcare Management at the Indian School of Business. I'm Soumya Shashidhara, the Associate Director at the Institute and the host of the series. In our earlier webinars, we have talked about ICU preparedness and role of home care. Today, we will talk about teleconsulting. This edition of the webinar is being held in association with NASSCOM, and we have with us Mr. Samir Jain, co-chair of NASSCOM Chandigarh and CEO of Net Solutions with us. Samir, thank you for your partnership. Teleconsulting is a service that has been around for a while. However, its adoption could not have been termed as sure-footed. With healthcare services under lockdown and the MCI guidance acting as an enabler, we have seen tremendous adoption. So is teleconsulting an idea whose time has finally come? To discuss this very topic, we have three panelists who are in the thick of things, and we will be talking about the current disruption in this area, and more importantly, the future possibilities of teleconsulting and how the larger healthcare ecosystem is evolving. We have with us Ashutosh Lavania, co-founder of Mfine and Myntra. Ashutosh has been creating a hospital on cloud with Mfine, which provides teleconsulting and home healthcare, and I'm sure fast evolving. Dr. Krishna Kandala, who straddles both the medical and tech worlds effortlessly as the Chief Executive Officer and Medical Director of Serona Healthcare. Serona conceptualizes and develops applications based on clinical processes and medical management algorithms. And the third panelist of the day is Gaurav Gupta, co-founder of Navya Life Sciences, an electronic medical record startup. I'm happy to share that Dr. Kandala and Gaurav are alumni of ISB's Advanced Management Program for Healthcare and PGP respectively. It's always a great pleasure to have our alumni with us. So I will begin the discussion by asking a few questions to the panelists, and after that, we will be inviting questions from the participants. Ashutosh, let me start with you first. Getting Myntra off to a sustainable business needed a lot of shifts in the way consumers shopped and experienced retail. In Mfine, you're creating a hospital on cloud, which challenges the need for in-person consultation, which for any and all doctor-patient interaction. So what has been the biggest challenge with the Mfine journey so far? By this, I mean in the pre-lockdown period, so to speak.
Okay. Hi, Soumya. Thanks for inviting me for this discussion. And I can see there are 173 more attendees. So good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to have you in this session. So it's a healthcare obviously is a tough category as compared to e-commerce, what we did at Myntra. When we started and we started creating hospital network and started driving consumers on our platform to deliver on-demand outpatient care services, and definitely we had a few challenges and that we have been solving. So, and some of those challenges fortunately got solved also in recent time. First, I will talk about on supply side challenges. So initially when we started onboarding doctors and hospitals from various parts of the countries on our platform, the one big challenge that we used to face that there was no clear guidelines on medicine. And whether it is illegal or there are gray areas, there were such kind of questions we used to face. If you go to a top hospital, top doctor, they will be having such question. Though it was in the absence of clear guidelines, it was all legal. But end of the day, since there were gray areas, there were apprehensions among doctors and hospitals, and some of the top hospitals and top doctors were refraining from doing any kind of using any kind of telemedicine platform, using online consultation platform. But or you can say unfortunately, fortunately, whatever is the current situation, MCI has come up with a guideline on 25th of March, and that builds a clarity on telemedicine. And whatever gray areas were there, those got resolved. So that is very helpful for the digital health and telemedicine industry. So that was the first challenge we faced. On supply side, another challenge that we faced. See, there are many systems within hospital, be it, lab management system, hospital management system. So there are various systems, and at the same time, there are many people who have created such systems. So when we were trying to scale up various services with hospitals, and then hospital wants to leverage maximum out of our platform, end of the day there has to be a handshake of data, and we actually didn't find a uniform standard or APIs. The existing systems are not that level where they are open to have a data exchange with any third party system. So that is another problem that or challenge that we are trying to solve. How multiple systems can exchange information in a healthcare ecosystem, so that healthcare providers or patient can get maximum out of the overall technology. On demand side, yes, telemedicine has been there since a long time, and as we understand, consumers are definitely pretty much getting inclined towards this channel, but still there is a need for a lot of behavior change. There's a lot of need to build trust. So at Mfine, we have been doing a lot of effort. And those efforts are via marketing and through other channel, and by bringing hospitals together in that effort. The idea is how we can drive that behavior change, that more and more consumers are getting comfortable with online consultation, telemedicine platform, and that behavior is getting changed, because we believe that okay, this is a more convenient channel, and in future this could pretty much solve access problem for in healthcare in India. So in that context, it becomes very important to talk about benefits of telemedicine to the consumers, and build that trust, and bring them to this platform and deliver great service. So I think that behavior change is an ongoing exercise, and it requires for every new idea or every new product which comes on a different channel. We face similar situation in e-commerce also. We started in 2007 until 2010 and 11. It was a struggling story, and every player was trying to drive that behavior change. But yes, after a certain point of time, the behavior change happened, and then more and more consumers started adopting online channels for getting various product services. We believe similar trajectory will be followed in telemedicine and digital health also, and consumers would start coming to online platform to avail more and more outpatient services via online channels. So I think by and large, these were the three big challenges that we have been facing, and we.
All right. Thanks, Ashutosh. So it's just not like a one solution for adoption. So that is where is the thing. So coming to Dr. Kandla, Krishna, you are both a clinician and a tech professional. I think that's the merger that we are looking at more and more. So what is your assessment of what has changed with the healthcare services ecosystem that is driving this particular change in terms of adoption?
Good morning, Soumya, and good morning, all the listeners and the panelists. And coming back to your question, what is exactly driving the current change in the I'd like to kind of break this down into three different components as such. Uh, there are the drivers, there are the enablers, and then there are the leaders. Within the driver segment, we have primarily the patients, and who are primarily being driven by impaired mobility, inaccessibility, um, ubiquitousness, I would rather call it, finding cell phones and other devices through which you can communicate is almost all over the place. And of course, the ease of use. These four factors, I believe, are primarily the driving things which have the potential to bring about a change in the current ecosystem. And then we have the enablers, which are primarily the technology platforms that are out there, which are providing these, enabling these teleconsultation portals. And of course, the bandwidth, I can not negate that ever, and which comes into the hardware part of it. And then you have the regulations, which are government regulations, which are enabling this connect between the drivers and the providers. And finally, we have the providers who are essentially the doctors who are looking to fulfill their roles completely and be accessible to the patients, um, and also looking for a fee for the services that are being rendered. Now, amongst all these three, these are the factors which remain immaterial of the current COVID situation and the lockdown situation or not. Now, the current COVID situation, especially the lockdown, has given more power to these drivers, which is the impaired mobility. People are not able to go out of their homes. They are kind of logged in at most of the places. Inaccessibility. Most of the hospitals, OPDs are closed, and accessibility to other doctors has been heavily restricted because of the lockdown. You still have your mobile phones, which are there in every household, most of them. And the technology, it all depends upon if it is easy and convenient to use. These drivers will push this towards an increased adoption, and then connecting both the doctors and the patients. I see a very big role in the technology platform out here, because they are straddling between the drivers and the providers. And there was a huge stumbling block, which was earlier put the entire ecosystem in a lot of confusion with regard to no legal clarity on how to go with this. Thankfully, the March 25th document has been by the government, Ministry of Health and Family Affairs, has actually given a lot of clarity and a free hand for the drivers, that is the patients, and the providers to interact with each other using multiple platforms. Amongst this, the drivers are in place, the technology platforms are in place, and also the providers are willing to adopt these platforms with the good regulations, which are also in place. But then what exactly is going to make a behavioral change, point one, and is it sustainable, are the two questions that needs to be looked into going forward. And this is where I see the technology platform's role as kind of magnified. See, most of the technology platforms earlier were just confined to providing a platform, which is purely technology based. But as more players are coming out into the market, I see even the technology players are actually evolving. They are also handling some of the services that are being provided by the healthcare community. At the same time, they're also trying to be a little more accessible to the drivers to enable a positive feedback mechanism. such that this becomes a sustained behavioral change going forward. Primarily, this can be driven by two things. The technology platforms are now recruiting a lot of doctors, a lot of healthcare professionals, in terms of being the first point of contact before they actually lead the patients to the required consultation. They are doing a lot of pre-follow-up and post-follow-up, primarily patient engagement. These will help make the transition in the behavior of the public. And unless this is done at the right moment, when you see this intent to adopt within the general public very strong, that is when this needs to be leveraged. And primarily, the more you engage with the users. So I see technology platforms are not just providing a consultation between a point A and a point B, but to also pre-consultation engage with the patients and also post-consultation engage with the patients, or at least provide a mechanism to engage with the patient. These were primarily the domain of the healthcare service providers or the hospitals earlier, but either due to lack of time or not having proper processes in place, the technology platforms can take this onus in terms of educating the patients on based on their condition, doing post-operative follow-ups, demonstration of some exercises over the videos, clinical and financial counseling mechanisms that can be put in place for complex quaternary care operations.
So, Krishna, what we are hearing is that we are not looking at two distinct industries coming together to offer service. This is more blending of health, technology, and then both are flowing into each other. So that is where you're coming from.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask my next question to Gaurav, who has been dabbling in the electronic medical records world since he's went out of ISB. So Gaurav, I just want to understand how the electronic medical records have evolving, because I think EMRs have been around as a service much earlier to teleconsulting. And then how do you see the shifts happening here? And then how do you see the integration and going forward happening?
Yeah. Hi, Soumya. Thank you for inviting me, and I very warm welcome to all the panelists and the guests. So quickly, coming back to why we started Navya as a company. So it was basically to, with the aim of removing information asymmetry in the healthcare ecosystem. It could be via an EMR solution. It could be via something else, right? So the objective is to remove information asymmetry between a patient and a provider. Provider here is a doctor or a hospital, and between a provider and a payer. The payer basically could be an insurance, or in a lot of cases, patient again. So EMR basically acts as as the first step towards that, which acts towards maintaining sort of a secure and integral way to communicate information shared between a patient and a doctor, so that equitable health literacy is achieved in the ecosystem, right? So what we are seeing now, that with this belief that EMR systems are going to change the way healthcare functions, because of the data that comes in, because of the information that is coming in, and the analytics that can be built around those information by different players. So different healthcare ecosystem nodes would have access to this information on the basis of what they're allowed to access. So this information basically helps in improving the overall patient outcomes as well, which is the objective of healthcare ecosystem, right? So what we're seeing now with the advancement of telemedicine, and I think I agree with Dr. Kandla here, that technology platforms are not only acting as enablers, but basically as Navya, we are trying to act more as a system which enables doctors virtual digital practice. So by virtual digital practice, I mean telemedicine, which is a part of our system, which becomes one of the parts. Second is EMR, third is payments, and fourth is analytics. So we work on all the segments together to so that a system is built which helps all the stakeholders of this ecosystem. And now looking at COVID-19, as a company, what we have seen, the adoption has become really, really fast. The rate at which we have seen adoption has never been seen in the ecosystem at all. That the major factors here is one, that government guideline which came in. Second is provider ecosystem. Healthcare is not driven by patients as much as we want to believe it is. It is driven a lot by doctors. So here we have seen that doctors now have sort of changed their mindset because of the risk of mucosal infections. They have understood, that this ecosystem is going to be, if they have to use, I mean, if they want to interact with the patients right now, the only way is virtual. So they are adopting to all and every healthcare technology platform that they can find, and they find the ones that they find easiest to use. So I think one of the major factors would be how easy is the platform and how secure it is with respect to the data privacy, and as well how well does it covers all the four factors that I had mentioned earlier.
Great. Thanks, Gaurav. So I think at this point, I think it becomes very important for us to imagine a world post lockdown, right? So, and then I'm coming back to Ashutosh in trying to imagine such a world, because we are going to leave and hopefully very soon and safer. So Ashutosh, how do you see partnership post the lockdown? And I'm sure there's been a lot of inputs and possibilities that have emerged now. And then more importantly, how do you create stickiness on the demand side, especially? If you can.
So I hope the situation eases out, and India pretty much recovers back whatever cases are coming, and we do a good job and reach to that situation where COVID is pretty much gone. But end of the day, during this 45 days period, I think it will drive a lot of behavior change among consumers. And everybody would be looking at world very differently. So if I look at on consumer and patient side, I think going forward, patient would not want to probably go in that area where there are a lot of other patients. Okay, even lockdown is removed, everybody would be having in their back of mind that, okay, if I'm going to the hospital, there are other patients, and if something, if I catch over there, then what would happen? Similarly, among doctors also, that mindset would be there, that, okay, these patients are coming, and if some of them are having some infectious diseases, it could be any infectious diseases. Anytime, like, okay, flu-like symptoms would be looked upon in a very, very careful manner. So that scenario would be there. If you look at some of the countries where things have improved, they are already adopting within the hospitals how to create a clean zone and a dirty zone. That unfortunately, that's the name they're using. But the patient whosoever having infectious disease, they go to a particular zone, and then the process for healthcare delivery is very, very different. And okay, just a ortho problem and not any infectious disease, probably he will directly go to the clean zone. So already hospitals have started adopting these practices. Some of the hospitals that what we have been witnessing, those are on M-Fine platform. Very similar thing they have done, that they have created a sort of a, within the hospital, a telemedicine room. And patient first goes to that telemedicine room, and the doctor is also within the hospital, but first consultation is happening over audio video chat. So those things will continue to remain there, that it will continue to linger in patient's mind, and that will drive a behavior change, and probably visit to the hospital would become when actually it is utmost necessary, and probably online platform and telemedicine becomes a default way to reach out to the doctors and hospital, and it becomes the first port of call. So that is on healthcare delivery process. But beyond that, also there would be a lot of changes that we may witness in the world. See, health screening will become a very common thing, which has not been there till now. And as I think I had shared earlier also, after 9/11, the way checking and security check became very, very common at any public place. I think same phenomena will arrive because of COVID-19 also. So imagine like a delivery boy coming to your house from any e-commerce player, or and getting the product. You will always be looking at whenever you are collecting any goods or product and meeting that guy, you would like to know whether that guy has been doing good or not. Okay. Similarly, when you are getting into a malls, you would want to know basically in a public area that okay, within the mall all the people are healthy, or they are not having any infection. So such kind of practices would come. Short term, I think contact tracing as a product, a lot of people have been building. Google, Apple, both of them have come together to figure out contact tracing based on a Bluetooth protocol. So I think world will go in that direction where more and more product would come, which would help us to understand how a person doing in terms of his health, and then it builds more comfort to have more social interaction with that person. At the same time, on the hospital and care delivery process side also, there would be certain steps which would be taken to ensure that either patients are getting treated in a remote environment, or doctor and patient are only contacting when there is a certainty that doctor will not get infected, and how to make hospital itself like okay, infection, basically prevent infection within hospitals. So far hospitals have not been designed for that. So I think world will go in that direction.
All right, great. Thanks, Ashutosh. And Ashutosh, a follow-up question. I want to push you on the point of stickiness, because I think one is adoption and next is sustainable business models of health tech platforms, right? So you are indeed providing a virtual consultation. I agree, but I think it is not possible for us to ignore the fact that it is absolutely necessary at some point for the patients to go and interact with a doctor in a hospital or a healthcare organization. And we have had other experiences where there was only the first touch point with a virtual platform, but people also have the leakage of going directly to hospitals. So
Yes.
how are you seeing this kind of what are you seeing the relationship between the virtual platforms and hospitals evolving, and then how do you create that stickiness where there is more of a complementary service rather than acting as a first point or a competition in a sense?
So I think virtual channels are just extension of whatever hospital. Like okay, suppose there is a hospital and I'm having like okay 5 OPDs in a physical environment, and virtual becomes another channel for me. It's an extension of my outpatient center. So I believe see, end of the day, it will not be the scenario where a patient will not be going to the hospital and they have to go. Like, okay, there are like, okay, more scenarios where there has to be an in-person diagnosis, or probably there would be procedures, surgery, further secondary care. Treatment has to be done within the hospital facility where there are more equipments and all those. So that would continue to happen. The only thing is for every provider, be it doctor, be it a clinic, or be it a hospital, virtual or online becomes another channel. And so far, that channel has not been that predominant. But we believe going forward, the channel will become far more important for providers. and it will become a predominant channel. It could become actually predominant channel. So what would happen? Like, okay, these providers and doctors, so far their investment has been in the direction of expanding themselves in a brick and mortar way. I think there would be some more investment how to like, okay, work with various providers and enhance the technology based on whatever they need. They are also pretty much like a stakeholder in the whole care delivery process. So I think what I see like a more and more involvement of doctors and hospital influencing all these digital tech companies and contributing towards building right product and right process for healthcare delivery through virtual channel. So I think this will become an important channel and an extension for the hospital, and I believe there would be contribution from hospital also to evolve this channel.
All right. Great. Thank you. So Krishna, I'm going to come back with a question that we have all thought about earlier. With large hospitals coming in, I think we have always bemoaned the fact that primary, secondary, tertiary healthcare have all been mixed up, and it's not necessarily a very efficient system that to have primary healthcare footfalls like kind of being directed to tertiary care hospitals. So how do you see the renewed role of teleconsulting, and what will be the new care models that can emerge and through this whole digital adoption happening?
Hello?
Krishna, we can't, yeah.
Am I audible, Raf?
Now, yes.
Firstly, we've seen that the large corporate group of hospitals are dealing with all the levels of care that is being provided both from primary, secondary, tertiary, and for most hospitals, what drives their entire patient care is patient engagement. And let's say there are corporate hospitals which are primarily tertiary care centers. However, they can all telemedicine provides them an opportunity with a limited infrastructure to reach out to these patients to provide that primary care at the first level. This helps them to be engaged with the patient, to be within their sphere of influence, so that the patients can start coming back with simple problems as well as complex problems back to the same hospital. So this long-term engagement with the patient actually has multiple dividends across all the spectrums and levels of care. And the same thing goes even for the smaller hospitals too. The more they engage with the patients would demand to come in, even would treat these hospitals as the first point of contact. They would reach out to them through online portals, and also that converts into a physical visit back to the hospital for either operation, surgery, or any other procedures. So I do see this as a very positive trend for all the hospitals to engage more actively and proactively with the patients, and these platforms are an excellent medium to get to them.
Thanks. Gaurav, in your earlier discussion, you mentioned about a lot of kind of information that is going to start being available for analytics and things like that. So what has been your, and then I think there'll be an unprecedented data available in terms of OPD, and that's what would be the basis. How do you see the larger healthcare ecosystem evolving, especially the pharma, the insurance, which is quite integral to where we see healthcare services going on? Gaurav, over to you.
I don't. So I take this question into two parts. I'll break it down. One, I'll talk about what I look at telemedicine and the future of it in a way, and then coming to the data, right? So with respect to telemedicine and the future of digital health, essentially, there I see telemedicine to be a part of the process of a patient's journey. So either it can be a first point of contact, it can be a follow-up method for a lot of chronic disease patients. It can be a method wherein a lot of patients who are remote patients or are tier 3 rural area patients can get in touch with the doctor who they are already being treated with. It could be a post surgery follow up. It could be a usual treatment follow up, right? So it would depend on, it's a complex ecosystem, so it will depend on multiple factors where telemedicine would play a role in this. Along with that, as it becomes another thing which becomes very important is the ecosystem in the way it is built, so that the patient is sent the right information at the right time. So along with telemedicine, engagement models come into the picture. So how care is delivered with respect to both telemedicine and engagement. And thirdly, I'll talk about a little bit on the hospital side. So we have, come up with a concept like a touchless OPD kind of a concept with hospitals. So wherein, what the focus there becomes, I mean, whenever there are high risk infection times, so a hospital have demarcated, as even Ashutosh mentioned, demarcated zones, right? Where you come up and you do a consultation on telemedicine, and then go back if you're not required to go further into the hospital, right? And lastly, with respect to future, another thing which comes in, which becomes very important, is the advent of IoT and devices, basically, where the home care devices, which can be used by people on their own, or can be set up in a way like a PHC technology enabled PHC primary health center, which basically helps in taking those vitals for the patient, so that telemedicine is enabled and the results which can come in from telemedicines are more efficient and are more relevant, right? So especially in the case of newer patients. So primarily from the telemedicine perspective, this is how I see it going forward. Secondly, looking at the data, now if we look at the data that is coming in from multiple players, so primarily it is patient information that is coming in with respect to more on diagnostics and population health related data, right? So how do we utilize this data for enable multiple stakeholders so that they can utilize this data and analyze it for betterment of themselves and for the ecosystem? So if you look at pharma, it can help in a lot of ways, from focusing on the doctors in a better way, that is field force enablement or efficiency improvement. It could be research, it could be formulation, devising the formulation in a way that usually doctors are combining these two medications and these are leading to better results, right? So from that perspective, if you look at insurance, it could be helpful in higher in bet in basically designing better OPD related plans. That is one, because right now it's a complete black box. Our OPD is completely black box. So we are sort of moving towards a system where there's some information available, so that better plans can be devised where people can be incentivized for following up with the doctor. Right? And then we look at the government level, where population health, from the population health perspective, we can devise better policies, so that overall we can look at improving the population health in a certain way.
Thanks so much, Gaurav. And then teleconsulting is as much as a technology piece as it is a healthcare one, though the boundaries are merging very quickly. So now I invite Sameer Jain to ask a few questions that are probably more relevant to tech entrepreneurs. Meanwhile, I request participants to start sending in your questions in the Q&A box. And please don't put in your questions into the chat box. I'm going to be reviewing only the Q&A box for ease of things. Sameer, over to you, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Soumya, Shitosh, Gaurav, and Krishna. So this question is for any or all of you, and basically around the tech piece of building these telemedicine solutions. First question would be around the digital divide that we have in terms of the Bharat in India, so to say, the rural and the urban landscape, and the fact that not only the digital literacy but the infrastructure that's available. There's a big divide in that as well. So when you build your products, how do you manage that dichotomy? How do you straddle both these worlds?
Ashutosh, would you like, Krishna, sorry if you.
Krishna, please go ahead.
Could you reiterate the question, please?
Yeah, so basically we're talking about that digital divide, right? We're talking about digital health and telemedicine. There is one half, the urban landscape, where people have better access to infrastructure and also digital far better than the rural landscape, where the adoption might not be that much or the literacy might not be enough. So when you build those tech products, how do you sort of transcend those barriers, those digital barriers in the two landscapes?
Actually, very briefly, we had tried this at some of the remote places, be it in Gujarat and also in the Telangana state, the home state where I'm from. And primarily, the approach that we had taken to use 4 different types of communication as a part of the telemedicine. One is asynchronous, synchronous. Asynchronous meaning you collect the data and then send it for the doctor to evaluate. So this helps with the bandwidth. And the synchronous is through a video consultation or through a direct chat, which involves both the doctor and the patient to be in real-time communication with each other. We found in the remote places, asynchronous data can be sent out because of bandwidth necessities, and that is a more convenient medium. As long as we have a standard procedure and protocols in terms of how you are collecting the information and sending it out, both in terms of video data as well as audio data and the regular text data. Synchronous is where the whole problem lies in. Bandwidth and penetration into the remote areas is where the whole issue lies in. And we have also been interacting with quite many ISP providers so that there is one kind of a kiosk with one human. When I mean human, I'm talking about some kind of a service, clinical service authority there. It could be an RMP for a small local village who is co-opted into this process and who is able to translate the local languages and then give basic information such that this kiosk or a single computer, you are able to connect to around 50 to 100 patients over a period of time and deliver these teleconsultation services. At least that's what we had tried.
Yeah, Samir, so I would probably take up this question and talk in 2 parts. So first of all, I would like to share my own point of view on Bharat and India. So I think Bharat and India both are coming closer very fast because smartphones are bridging that gap. So if you look at if there are doubts that okay, people cannot use technology, those who are there in tier 3, tier 4 towns or any such remote area, I think WhatsApp, TikTok, such kind of mediums have proven that wrong, and their usage and all those. If you look at, I think consumers across India, they are getting more and more comfortable with the smartphone. So that's our belief. Okay, and some data point those corroborate at least on our platform that we have delivered care in 937 towns of India. So that's a second data point. We have seen even like a farmer from his farming field doing a video consultation with the doctor in Bangalore. So So that suggests, okay, may not be today, but I think that bridge and divide is getting filled pretty fast using smartphone. But nonetheless, we have been focusing concretely on 2, 3 things that will help us to reach out to those patients who are probably in tier 3, tier 4 towns. I think the health problems are best described in their own mother tongue or native language. Okay, so that's the one insight that we are having. So first focus is how we could cover more and more languages, and India is having many languages. So that's one focus area. So we have already launched Hindi. Now we are working on Telugu, but gradually we will continue to roll out our platform in various other native languages also. So that's number one. Number two, we understand yes, the overall mobile network or internet network. Yes, it is good in certain areas, but there would be still low bandwidth areas. And how our platform gives the right experience in those low bandwidth areas as well. I think that would be the second thing that our priority to ensure that whatever solution and platform that we are building provides best experience to those people also. I think that's our way of thinking, and that's why we have adopted smartphone as the like a consumer platform or app. So we believe with these three strategic direction, we could probably bridge that gap at least for our solution between Bharat and India.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Samir. And then we would like to keep the webinar interactive. So I will take some questions. We have a lot of questions. So I'm trying to kind of summarize some of the more popular topics as I scroll through the question and answer box. I think 2 questions I'm going to ask the panel now. So one is on data security, on patient level data, and then how are we going to ensure that data security is going to be ensured in the fact that everything is going to be available on a digital platform, remotely saved somewhere in the cloud. The second one, of course, is the question that I think each and every doctor who wants to adopt a digital platform is asking. How do we, there is no use of stethoscopes, so what is the substitute? Everybody needs to use it, and to what would be the whatever replacement of physical examination and going up and related things. So if you can take those questions from your experience, I think that will be very good.
Okay, maybe anybody is having thought. I can start. I have a few thoughts.
Sure, please go.
Yep.
I think that's a very pertinent question. Doctor asking like, how we can enhance overall diagnosis process, especially in a remote consultation or telemedicine kind of environment. So I think I will share like what is happening around the world and what we are trying to do and what are the possible ideas. So definitely a lot of digital devices are coming. So digital statistics are getting built. Now, yes, those stethoscope may not be available, may not be with the doctor, but those devices would come in such a manner. These will be like consumer devices. So where consumer can use those devices in a very simple manner, and that data can be pushed back to the doctors to pretty much arrive at a right diagnosis for the patient. And then if you look at Apple Health and other Google, all those players are trying to pretty much enable everything within the mobile itself, so that more and more data is coming back to the healthcare providers. It could be whatever, like okay, heart rate or pulse rate and all such kind of things. Today, at least at our end, we are using video very effectively to get more and more data about patient ailment. So example is, so suppose if somebody is having say back pain or knee pain, so using video, then using cues, it can be easily communicated to the patient. Okay, point at a particular place and like, okay, where is the pain happening? So these are the additional things. We are also building various algorithms, how we can pretty much figure out the cough sounds and how we can relate from cough sound what kind of possible diagnosis may be there. So it's a dry cough, wet cough. So we are already having building those algorithms. We have already started collecting that information from the patient, and it can be recorded on mobile. At this point of time, we are already trying to figure out how we could measure SpO2 without any device using mobile. So we have been attempting on some of the algorithms and hope we'll figure out those algorithms which can actually help us to get patient SpO2 level using mobile itself. So some of those things are getting done, but yes, in the absence of proper diagnosis, the best way is patient actually comes back to the doctor and consult in person. I think all platform has to facilitate that process, and whenever there is a need, they should support the in-person consultation or visit with the doctor.
Okay. Can I chip in?
Sure, Krishna. And then also the follow-up, not follow-up, the other question was data security. So it will be great.
Yeah. So I will be continuing with the same aspect as to how do you take in some of the physical measurements. Interestingly, when I was going over the document which the government of India has given out, they had underlined primarily first thing is the context of this entire interaction. And what they mean by the context is this an emergency urgency or is this something which is being done on a routine basis? Point one. And am I audible?
Yes.
And it has quite much amount of freedom for doctors to assess within their limited scope for teleconsultation. So it is, and doctors are very keen and aware that a lot of the information that which they are getting through a teleconsultation portal is kind of partial because you're not physically examining the patient. You're not able to really get his pulse, respiratory state, and also maybe you look for some bruises, marks, or something else. State of cyanosis, etc. Although having a video consultation helps ameliorate that problems quite considerably. Second thing is, during a consultation process, given the current situation and scenario, for most of the diseases, around 80% of the information is you're getting it through the diagnostic labs, either through radiology or through your lab results. There's only 20% of the information that is actually gleaned from the patient when you're talking to them. And this is for a routine visit, for a routine consultation. In emergency, it absolutely becomes necessity that the doctor has to actually see the patient physically. So even in the report that has been suggested by the government of India, if it is an emergency, it is always advisable for them to suggest to go get treatment elsewhere where they can actually go visit him. If it is a non-emergent condition, yes, teleconsultation module serves as a very good platform. Coming to the part which Ashutosh was talking about was, yes, there is inclusion of a lot of technology in terms of having different types of sensors and also Doppler flows to detect, which can be connected to the mobile, are in the offing. And I believe going forward, these are all going to be mainstream, but there's still some way before we can reach that space yet. And I believe that's going to be at least a good 5 to 10 years, given the regulatory compliances that all these devices and sensors have to go through. So it is in the right direction we're going, but I still believe that this gap definitely needs to be addressed. And it is with some sense of caution, the doctors have to use the portal, putting in their good judgment to use.
Great.
Uh,
Thank you, Krishna.
To add Soumya to the data security question, I'll just quickly
Great,
give a
thanks.
very quick answer. So, with respect to the Data Security Privacy and Healthcare Privacy and Protection Act, we don't have one right now in India. There's a parallel law in the US called HIPAA, and Indian government started out working on a law called DISHA, right, which was very similar, and a lot of it has not been converted into regulation yet. So we are hoping to see something from the government side, so that it can be regulated properly. But from the perspective of what is happening in the healthcare ecosystem, one, at least with respect to Navya, what we make sure is the data basically is owned by the patient, because patient is the primary owner of the data, which is across the world. This is like a universal guideline, which is there in almost all the countries. Second is the hashing in the security of the data with respect to accessibility by anyone. So it should not be accessible to anyone unless patient specifically gives the consent to be accessed, right? That's second. And third, very important perspective is where the data lies. So in from the perspective of privacy in respect to with respect to country, we make sure the data lies in the servers located or hosted inside India. So these are the three primary factors which we look at from the data privacy side. And with respect to telemedicine, one point which I'm seeing a lot of questions and just wanted to add is a lot of there are two kind of platforms essentially. One are like marketplaces kind of platforms where doc patients are a focus and patients come and search for a doctor. Second kind of platforms are more like enabler platforms where there are there where they essentially give the right of the to choose the patient to the doctor. So, so I mean, it depends on the kind of platform you doctor is looking for, and that is the way this ecosystem is going, forward. That there would be categories of players, and doctors would be able to choose on the basis of what category of the player they want.
All right. Thanks. So there's this question from Sakshi Rastogi. She is a student of Advanced Management Program for Healthcare. Sakshi, hi, and good to have you on the webinar. So what kind of basic infrastructure and personnel other than doctors are needed to practice telemedicine? This is a question from the doctor practitioner perspective about what they need to be prepared with if they want to get onto a virtual platform.
Should I take it up?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So with respect to the infrastructure that is required right now, I think most of the platforms are built in a very simple manner, so that with least infrastructure requirement they can be used. So from the doctor side, at least for Navya, from the doctor's side, it is enabled on a web platform which is accessible to the doctor on a computer, a laptop, or iPad or an Android tablet, and so that they can do the consultation, and real time they can write the prescriptions on the platform itself. And secondly, from the patient side, it is accessible on a mobile platform. So right now government guidelines mandate that a teleconsultation can be a video, audio, a text-based consultation. Any which way is fine. So for us, we have enabled video and audio, because we believe that video is the closest you can reach to the real consultation, physical consultation, and audio is basically for the places where the reach of the bandwidth is lower. So to increase that reach, we have enabled the audio, which is a cloud-based calling based consultation.
All right. Thank you so much. This is a question for Ashutosh. About how the pharma sector is responding. Our pharma companies will also move to increase level of digital opt-ins with doctors post-COVID. This is a question from Prakula Uniel.
So I think there is a short-term requirement for pharmaceutical companies, and then gradually how they will support telemedicine. I think it will be driven from there. So short term, what has been happening in absence of physical OPDs, so the number of prescription those are getting done, they have come down, and pharma companies are not having enough visibility that okay, what is getting written by doctors, and their how they can track and monitor like okay, their business. So today they definitely support telemedicine, and a lot of pharma players have been coming to various telemedicine players, and they are already in touch with their own doctors, and trying to support their doctors with online consultation. So that's a good thing. Going forward, I think we believe this becomes a significant channel. So for pharma, getting a digital prescription versus any physical prescription, it's far more valuable. I think they will continue to support this telemedicine because it is in their business interest as well. So that's the viewpoint I'm having.
All right.
Does this help?
Yes, thank you so much, because I think it's all very new, and then the impetus is there now. So yeah, I think we have overshot our time, and then I'm very conscious of the time of everyone. So Ashutosh, I just want to invite you to just probably give some closing remarks before we say thank you to everyone and exit the webinar. How do you see things happening, and any messages to people who want to get onto virtual platform and things like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think whatever has happened, it is unfortunate. Like, okay, ideally this situation shouldn't have arisen, but at least this situation helps us to gear up for a new way of healthcare delivery process, which is far more scalable and far more accessible. That's number one. If you look at across the world, and this problem is across the world, there are a lot of changes have been happening. So if I take example of Ping and Good Doctors, they their online consultation volume rose to 900% during this problem in China. Earlier, when I visited Ping and Good Doctor, and I was like blown off that in one day they were doing 500,000 consultation. That's like okay, massive number. And now, since it would have grown another 900%, I think the numbers are unimaginable. There's a company, AcruRx, they put up a, and that is in UK, Europe. They put up a video consulting platform over the weekend and starts doing like 35,000 consultations in a day. So, and like okay, Babylon Health, Cry Health in Europe, and other all such platforms are gaining massive traction. And if you go and look at various reports, US, a lot of telemedicine platforms are getting good traction, and there has been a sizable investment in online health telemedicine platform in US. So I think time probably what we were imagining like okay this telemedicine would grow to that extent say in next 5 years. Probably it would get cut short by a significant portion, and probably we see like in next 2 years we would be seeing a very different world where not only the physical visit but online healthcare delivery also becomes an important and significant channel. And on top of that, the consumers definitely be changing their life, lifestyle or their outlook towards their health. They would be far more cautious in their behavior and the way they live. Probably mask, sanitizer would become a common thing in our day-to-day life. We would be far more watchful in going in public places. Health screening, contact tracing would be the new direction and new areas where a lot of new applications and products would come. I think it's a future, and I think we were going over there, but because of the situation, it has been fast forwarded.
All right. Thank you so much, Ashutosh, for your time, Krishna and Gaurav. It's been fantastic. I think we are at a very interesting inflection point in the history of healthcare services. And I think digital platforms, of course, will contribute greatly towards building a safer healthcare service system. And Samir Jain, thank you so much for your participation and partnership with NASSCOM. Thank you, everyone. Our next webinar will discuss about healthcare innovation in the times of crisis. We have seen a lot of energy in the startup and the innovation world, and we want to see how it's going, where it's going, and where it's contributing the great. I will soon be sending out information about the webinar. And thank you so much for being such attentive participants and panelists for your time in contributing your insights. Stay safe and stay connected. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.